Hi, my name is Victoria and I'm a life coach, and today I decided to do my video outside and with some beautiful scenery around me, and just change it up a little bit. So I thought that because I did the whole video on giving and receiving the other day, that I just give a little bit of scientific background on what I was meaning in that video and elaborate a little bit, because I think it's such an interesting side of our brain that I think if you understand a little bit of the science, you could actually really conceptualize what I'm trying to tell you to do. So mystics and Christians have spoken many times about the concept that giving is receiving, okay? And I want to suggest to you that although it's a very noble concept, there's actually quite a lot of science behind that. We have a part in our brain called the limbic system, which is responsible for our emotions and our behavior. And so that part of the brain isn't orientated toward time or object. So when we're giving to someone else, it can't differentiate between whether you are giving or receiving. It always feels responds as if it is receiving whatever is being given for itself. Now that's quite an interesting thing to consider. Okay, so whatever it is that we're creating for someone else, our bodies experience it first. Now, I think I explained that quite extensively in my first video, but let's just talk about prayers of peace, forgiveness of others. Oh, I've got bugs flying around me. Forgiveness of others. When we wish for healing on other people, we are experiencing the peace and healing for ourselves before it is given to anyone else. But you know, the converse is also true. When we're criticizing other people, the brain doesn't know that it's criticizing somebody else. It's considering and receiving that criticism for itself. It thinks that it is self-directed, and so that criticism is received as if you're criticizing. It believes that that's what you believe about yourself. That's quite an interesting thought. And if you think about all the things that come out of your mouth during the day, specifically when you're considering what you say about other people, it certainly sheds new light on the impact of your words on your own psyche and for your own self. So the brain is always receiving the gift you are giving to another as a gift to itself. Again, I ask you the question, are you giving good gifts or are you giving terrible gifts? What gifts are you giving? So I'd like to just reflect on another thing. When we give, we are creating connection between ourselves and other people. And the quality of that connection is determined by the gift we are giving. And when I say gift, I'm referring to both positive and negative gifts here. So let's just take that as synonymous. Whatever gift it is, we create a connection. So what is the quality of the connection that we are creating? So the spiritual connotation that I want to just bring in here is the concept that the greatest of all of us is the servant among us. So just think about that for a minute. This spiritual concept that was taught, that the greatest among us will be a servant, we often equate service with submission and being less than and needing to be in an oppressed state. I don't know why we really get into this sort of concept. Actually, I do know why. I don't know why I'm saying I don't know why. I know that it's our ego. And our ego finds it offensive and demeaning, and we don't like to be offended, and we don't like to feel less than anyone else. In fact, the truth is no one is less than anyone else. We've created those constructs in and of ourselves because we like to inflate our egos and make us feel wonderful, and we've done that by identifying ourselves with our external environment and our external possessions. And here's a side note, and I'll touch on this maybe in another video. and that is why we feel inferior to people who have a lot of money, or we feel nervous and self-conscious around people who have a lot of status, and why we place people who are celebrities on a pedestal, and this big grand um, um, concept of who they are is given to them. Why? Because of their achievements. We've created the identity of these people around their achievements, when in fact we are all equal. We there is nothing differentiating you and me other than my personality. But in terms of the value that we are to each other, that we've created materialistic constructs around that value. All right. So just because I have a bigger house than you doesn't make me any better than you. But because I identify with my big house, I've constructed myself larger than you. Or if you have a bigger house than me, or a better car than me, I consider you better than me, or I feel inferior to you because I identify myself with my material possessions. You see how all of these principles, psychological principles that I'm sharing with you, are interlinked. So anyway, let's get back to the topic, which is the giving and the construct of being offended or demeaned because we're serving. So I want us to really consider to give without expectation back, because giving isn't truly giving if we have an expectation that something must be returned to us. All right. And I want us, when we give, to create a connection with the people to whom we are giving. And I want you to consider that the word create is such a powerful word. So in the giving, we are in the process of creation, and in doing so, we actually overcome our own egoic pain of soreness. So it's the reason why mystics and in many religions they talk about being in service to others, especially when you're low. You know that being in service is the greatest, is one of the best ways to overcome your own feeling of lack of self-worth or depression. Now, I want to say to you that you might be asking yourself, how can I give that which I don't have? But it's because you believe that you don't have it, that you're in the state of pain that you're in. When you can give love, when you can give peace, when you can give forgiveness, remember you are first giving that to yourself. You are healing your inner soul before you even begin to affect anyone else. I want you to really sit and contemplate that thought. When we forgive, when we generate peace, when we give love, kindness, goodness to other people, we first are giving it to ourselves. And in giving it to ourselves, we are creating the response in our minds of self-worth and overcoming our egoic issues. Now, I want you to also consider that, especially now in this really difficult time that we're in. I mean, some of us, it almost feels surreal that we're in this period of social distancing and whatnots, and until it actually impacts us personally, it's very hard for us to conceptualize what this is all about and what's actually going on, because the only effect we are feeling is constriction of movement, okay? And for some, more than just constriction, it's loss of income. For some, it's separation from loved ones. For some, it's being confined in abusive homes with people who are hurting us. So this whole experience in our country is affecting people in many different ways. Many different ways. I would like you to consider that this is a period of self-reflection and creation of your own state of mind. I don't like to call it lockdown. I spoke about that yesterday, and I want to say to you, stop calling it lockdown. Call it your creative moments. I don't know. Give it a name. Give it a positive name. Come up with something fun and exciting, but stop calling it lockdown. Stop calling it isolation, and find a way to move past isolation. We are not isolated. We might be physically removed from each other, but we are not isolated. I've connected with more people via social media in this time period than I have in many, many months. So there's many opportunities for connection. I want you to consider the opportunity to create connection with people you care about. I want you to consider the opportunity to create connection with people whom you need to forgive. I want you to consider to create opportunities for yourself to be kind, to remove the need to speak evil of other people. All right. So I don't want us to wait for great loss and big tragedies before we recognize how inconsequential our material possessions are in our lives. You know, when there is such great loss, like let's just take 9/11, and there was such loss of life. Yes, we saw all the great destruction of the physical and material elements around. But at the end of the day, our pain was caused because of the great loss of life that was experienced. Now, that happens in many different circumstances. I'm really just mentioning 9/11 because I listened to a story of somebody who was involved in a service project there. But I want us to honestly consider how material possessions can totally lose their meaning when there is tragedy. And when there's isolation and when there's loss around us. I also want you to consider to give gracefully, but at the same time I want you to be able to receive gracefully, because in order to give well you need to receive well. It's a two-way thing. You can't give and not receive. It's a process. That keeps going and keeps moving. You need to be able to do both, and you need to be able to find the grace within self to do both. We are each at different stages of life. We're going to have different things to give and different things we need to receive, and sometimes we will be able to give more, sometimes we need to receive more, but at the end of the day it all balances out. So there is the scientific explanation. I hope it gave you some insight, and I hope that you can change your thinking and really come to grips with this and recognize that when you give, you receive, and give to yourself the good things in life. I've got a puppy that wants to say hello, so I need to say goodbye. Anyway, namaste, love and light, God bless, and I wish you all the best.